Well, it's Commitment Sunday, where we can make a commitment of our time, talent, and treasure. And we've been hearing about this the last few Sundays. My kids actually asked me, how many times are you going to remind and talk about that? I don't know, maybe 6, 7? Don't waste your brain cells if that went over your head, okay? But today's the last time I'll do it, but it's important to do it because we all have a race to run. And it's a race we can all run together. And to do that, I want to quickly touch on 4 things from the readings today. The race St. Paul invites us to run, how the Pharisee chooses his race, how the tax collector prepares for his journey, and finally, how we want to handle our own race. Now, in our readings today, St. Paul talks about running the good race and a crown of righteousness that awaits us. To successfully run a long race takes commitment and effort. It also takes listening to a good coach. In the race St. Paul speaks of, it takes commitment to our faith and a willingness to use our time, talent, and treasure. And it takes a willingness to listen to God, the best coach ever. We all get to choose which race we want to run and the prize that we chase. The question is, are we wanting a crown of self-righteousness right now? Or are we willing to run the long race for the eternal crown Paul speaks about? Today's gospel shows us 2 different pathways that help answer that question. We have a Pharisee and a tax collector. Each of them approaches their idea of a conversation with God differently. I think at times we probably feel like both the Pharisee and the tax collector. So let's look at ourselves and how we might act like the Pharisee at times, and how perhaps if we adopted the humility of the tax collector, we might run a better race. What kind of conversation do we want to have with God, our coach, as we prepare for our own race? Are we ready to have an honest conversation with God about our time, talent, and treasure? And are we ready to listen to what God has to tell us? Are we ready to acknowledge the source of our blessings and return that gift to our church community? Because I think an important today is not just what we do with our time, talent, and treasure, but where exactly is our heart as we do those things? So let's look at the Pharisee. What is he doing? Well, he enters the temple to pray. Nothing wrong with that. Apparently he fasts. Nothing wrong there. He says he tithes money. Well, that sounds pretty good. But why we do something and where our heart is matters. Why does he give money and follow all these rules? Is it because he really wants to use his time, talent, and treasure to serve the community? Does he even love his community? Quite the opposite. He's pretty harsh on his community. He says, "Thank you that I am not like the rest of humanity, greedy, dishonest, adulterous, or even like this tax collector." That's pretty harsh, right? It's totally pompous, it's arrogant, and shows no actual love for his community. Rather, he's more relishing in his moment of superiority and looking down on everyone else as unworthy human beings. He wants his crown, but he wants his crown of self-righteousness. When we hear it in this gospel, it's pretty easy to see it as wrong. But do we ever sound like this when we have conversations with God? Thank God I am not an idiot like the people in the political party I disagree with. Thank God I am not like those other parents who can't seem to raise their children properly. Thank God I am not like those homeless people who use drugs on the street. Thank God I worked hard to get the things I deserve, unlike lazy people. Thank God I'm not like the people who don't go to church. Thank God I'm not a Dodgers fan. Okay, that one's okay, you can keep that one. But the other examples, they take a foolish pride in feeling superior. They're not grateful for the blessings we have. They are not intending to have a conversation with God. Rather, it gives us that feeling of power. We actually feel like we don't need God as our coach. We've got it all figured out. We deserve a crown of self-righteousness right now. Now, we've all got some subject that triggers us into feeling like that or to get that self-righteous behavior. When we're in this state, though, the state of thinking, we're not prepared to use our time, talent, and treasure for any good. So now let's look at the tax collector. He's pretty much considered the worst of the worst in his time. First, he's working for the Roman occupiers. Second, they would usually charge their own people extra money so they could line their own pockets. So you can see, pretty much the most hated person out there. But here he is, just like the Pharisee, entering the synagogue. The difference is, he is ready to acknowledge his sinfulness. He stands in the back and says, "Oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner." He is actually ready to have a conversation with God and be coached. He has placed himself in a position of inferiority. He has put himself in a position to change, and that's the mindset that changes the way we see situations in life. It takes away our blindness and allows us to do things that are better for our community. It allows us to be coached. When we come in with humility, we acknowledge our limitations, and we acknowledge that God is the source of all our talent, time, and treasure. When we view it this way, it'll change the way we view other people and our situations. So the conversation then changes with God. Thank you, God, for my convictions. Help me to see the viewpoints of others. Thank you, God, for blessing me with a job and a home. I see how so many others have less. How could I share these blessings to help those who have much less? Thank you, God, for giving me talents to accomplish things in life. I see others struggling with life. How would you like me to share my talents and help them? Thank you, God, for giving me this time on earth. How can I best use some of it to run the good race and help others to do the same? How can me, a sinner, be of service? You see, when we come in with humility, we are ready to have a real conversation with God. So back to today's Commitment Sunday. If you didn't get a commitment card in the mail or filled it out already, there's some in the pews you could take home with you. But if you haven't filled it out yet, I'd rather you not just fill it out quickly, just to crank something out. First, have that conversation with God. And have the conversation that you want so that you can be coached. Think about what you want to say as you come up to communion today. And then consider that when you make your commitment. Now, everyone's in a different situation in life right now, and what you can and cannot do will vary. Again, we're not here to say, thank God that I do more on my commitment card than anybody else. That would be quite the opposite, right? We want to come in with humility. And if you decide something right now to commit to, and it needs to change, that's okay. We'll understand it. But it starts with that conversation with God and a heart that wants to get in the good race. So as St. Paul says, from now on, the crown of righteousness awaits me, which the Lord, the last judge, the just judge, will award to me on that day. And not only to me, but to all who have longed for his appearance. So we have the best coach ever in God. We have an awesome St. Francis community. So how about we all join in and run this race together?